So, good morning, everyone. The time has come. Please take whatever you need to keep you awake during our discussion and join us together. We got another research breakfast today. And it's honor for me and I believe for us all that Lenka, Bešše and Andrej Bešše accepted our invitation to be grilled in front of cameras and you and tell their story. So we are happy that you're here, and we are eager to know what's behind you, who are you, and what drives you to be here. Yeah.
Thank you very much for kind invitation. And yeah, we are happy to be here. I don't know about you, Andrej.
Should I say no? No, of course, we are happy. And I have to thank you for this organization. I think the breakfast are really great opportunities to meet the people, to see the people, to discuss. That's, I think, very important to have the discussion in between us.
Perfect. Thank you. We have an issue here. We got only one mic, so there won't be very, let's say, live online discussion. We have to manage that and be very polite. Okay. So you two are recent arrivals to the med school here. So could you just introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what brought you here and where did you come?
Yes, so I think we arrived a year ago. We returned back from Switzerland, where we spent almost 9 years, I would say. 9 years? Yes. Mm-hmm. 4 years without the kids, and then 5 years with the kids. I think our journey started in 2014, when I was finishing my PhD here at the Faculty of Medicine. I graduated from oncology, and then I met my future boss here, actually in Brno. That was very interesting because he was visiting Brno for a talk, and that's how we met.
And who was it?
My boss was from St. Gallen Hospital, Christoph Driesen. So at that time he was an oncologist, head of the oncology department, and now he's the head of the hemato-oncology clinics at the cantonal hospital in St. Gallen. So I met him early in that year, and it was actually a very nice coincidence because I was introducing him around the campus and we were chatting a bit. And actually, the reason why I got the position in Switzerland was probably Villa Tugendhat, as I need to say.
Wow, another part of the story of Villa Tugendhat.
Yes.
Okay. What happened there?
So he was asking me about what he can do in Brno, and I suggested to visit Villa Tugendhat because it was, it's at the UNESCO list, and it's a jewel here in Brno, and he really liked it. He managed to go to have a tour there, and then actually I told Andrej that I met a boss from Switzerland, and he was already packing his suitcase to move there. So I asked him about the possibilities to go there to St. Gallen, and he was not very sure if he gets funding and if that would be possible. But then at our last talk, when we were leaving St. Gallen, he actually told me that someone who suggested him to see Villa Tugendhat should probably be smart. So that's how he decided to give me a position in St. Gallen. So that's how we left there. And I got the position, but I was not really sure for how long I want to move, because we were recently married in that year, probably like 6 months. So I didn't want to leave for a long time. And so I explained that also not only the work, but also the life balance is important for me. And he actually offered Andrej a PhD position there also. So that's how we both got the position in the same lab and under the same boss.
Wow, so Villa Tugendhat had to make an impression, so
Yes.
he bought both of you.
I think so.
I actually have to say that his house resembles very much Villa Tugendhat, so I think therefore he was also very much into it, so that was also maybe the reason.
Yeah. So you finished your PhD and you were...
I actually, at the time when we were married and Lenka came with the offer, I remember I was at some presentation from the company Roche, and they showed the campus in Switzerland. I was like, I have to go there, I want to be there. And Lenka came with the possibility that the boss asked her that if she would like to join, and she said, yeah, I don't know. And I told her, I mean, we just packed the suitcase and we just go, you know, that's an offer which doesn't come every day, so let's try it. And at that time I was, I think in the first year in the PhD at the Masaryk University, because that's the whole university life I spent here, bachelor, master, and I started the PhD. Unfortunately, it was not possible to somehow switch. I had to get enrolled to the University of Zurich. So I had to pass the exams and being enrolled and then write the proposal. But luckily, everything went good. And then I started my PhD over at the University of Zurich.
So that was taking advantage of the opportunity to be there and to get enrolled there. You said you just finished your PhD here in the field of oncology. What was the thesis?
Yes, so I was working on multiple myeloma and microRNAs, and that's how actually I'm a little bit interacted with my future boss, because he was also myeloma specialist, but in completely different field, in proteomics and proteasome and a lot of other things. But we just thought, you know, when you move forward with your career, it's good to switch part of the topic, not completely, but also it's good to stay a little bit connected to something that you know. So that's how I switched the topics. And yeah, we both had to learn a lot at the beginning, of course, but it was, I think, very interesting and very productive time. And I was a postdoc in the lab for 2 years. Then I made a short internship to University of Florida. And I returned, and my boss was promoted to be the head of the clinic, so he had basically zero time for the lab. So he suggested that I overtake the duties of the head of the lab after these 2 years. And so I agreed, although the beginning, of course, was not easy, because if you build your own lab, it's like different, right? You pick your own people, whereas now you overtake somebody's duties with already a team where up to certain time point you work as a colleague, and now you should be a boss of everyone. And
How did they accept that?
I think mostly very positively,
Wow.
although I was younger than some of our bachelor or even PhD students, so so that was a challenge at the time. But I think mostly it's important to have a good spirit in the lab, and when we had that, there were no difficulties with competitions, for example, that someone would say, oh, I desire this position more, or, you know, like, there was just common agreement that we all kind of felt this would be good for everyone. And there were, of course, older people than I was, but they did not have this desire to be heading the labs. They didn't know how to write grant proposals, how to lead the PhD students. So that's something I learned, but it was probably good that we, as a lab, felt this common way.
Wow, so this is something, yeah, this is something, how to change a position from a colleague to a leader. Yes.
Yes, yes.
And what would you say, what were the, let's say, the reasons for your success, that you were able to switch from a colleague to the leader, and to be accepted, and to make a team working together?
I think part of it is that I don't really like conflicts, and I always try to talk to people openly, and I also don't like, if someone has a problem, I don't like that it's hidden. I like that we discuss it openly, no matter if that is regarding me, my behavior, my attitude, or the behavior or attitude of the students or technicians or other colleagues. I like to be open about it. And I think there were several probably parts. One of them was that at that time I was already trained also from my PhD to write papers, to have certain knowledge about how it is to be in a position when you need to write, not only perform the experiments. And the second part was that at some point, I don't feel that I had a problem with anyone, that everyone could just discuss simply the things with me. So that's how we also agreed that it would be good. But I also have to mention, our team was not big, right? I think we were like 7 people, so it's not a huge lab when you need to...
It's enough for dissent.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrej, how was it the time when your partner switched from being a postdoc and started to be a leader?
Actually, it may sound that it may be difficult because you know, if you are partners also in private life, you are kind of equal. But I have to say, also, you become a boss not because you get the position, but because you are leader, and you know something more than the people. Because then, when you are like on the same, and the boss doesn't know much more than you, or even you know much more, then it's hard to get like, you know, have the distance and being like. But if you see that the boss is really pushing or even being leading and show you where you're supposed to go and can help you. That is, I think, how you gain respect. And that was one thing, that you have to have the knowledge, skills. That's the first thing. And second of the thing, you can't be just like, I am now the boss and you have to listen. So if the boss is also listening. And I think these were the 2 criteria which Lenka was successfully or gained successfully. And I never had actually problems. Maybe she had sometimes problems because we were all the time discussing lab issues or not lab issues, but work, you know. Doesn't matter whether we were like...
In the same lab, yeah?
In the same lab, next to each other. Like, it was almost 24/7. So even when we went to some holidays, we were still discussing, if there was some issue, we were still discussing the work. And I know that I was sometimes very demanding on this. Even when we had kids. But I think these 2 are very important criteria to be a good boss, to listen and to have the skills from which the other people know that I can learn from this. So I think that therefore I have to say we never had like really like issue that one was not talking to the other, or there was because everything was open. You could just go and say directly, I don't like this, can we change, and we could always discuss. And I think that was the good point.
Perfect. And you said before it started that you were quite devoted to the work. Yeah, you said you had rooms in your dormitory, but you spent almost no time there, and you spent your time in the lab. So you didn't really solve the work-life balance at those times.
No, I think in the beginning it was just work. But you know, it's
for how long?
I think it's seasonal in Switzerland. So in summer you work less. You work less because you go to the mountains more. In the winter you work more because the mountains are closed, unless you are skiing. But the skiing is super expensive there, so we could not really go that often. But I think we never expected to stay for 9 years. I think the original plan was probably 2-3 years, and in this time we thought, let's just squeeze this time as much as possible for what we can learn here. So for how many people we can meet, how much we can network. So we did not think about it as being just a work. We thought about it more like being really the time when we want to use the maximum of it to get to know the work in Switzerland, to get to know the people, to maybe start new collaborations in Switzerland that would bring us new ideas, new papers. So that's how it felt. It did not felt like we need to go to work again, but it was more like, I would say, a part of our daily life, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I was feeling about it. I mean, there are always periods in our life. You know, if you are young, you are very enthusiastic, you want to work. It was not that I had to go to work. That what I like on our boss, also on Lenka, she never pushed me that you have to go there. But I was all the time there because I wanted to know. I wanted to do the experiment. Even there were some time where in the midnight I just couldn't sleep because I didn't know like how it will end up the experience. I just went to work and I just did it. Usually it was a very bad idea because then you are tired and you screw everything up. But I mean, there was never like a time where we said, no, we need to now work very hard because we need to go progress somehow. It was always we wanted. And that was the first 4 years, and luckily then we had kids, which completely changed also the how you work in the work, how you try to be as most effective because you know you have to pick up the kids. There is no other way. At 4 you have to be there and you have to pick them up. So you can't just say, okay, I will just do the Western later. No, it's just you have to do it now. So I think you start to be more effective, but you can also like rest a little bit because the kids don't let you think about the work. They want to play with cars or something, and they want to be fully involved in that. So I think it's another part of your life, and I think it's to have this. In socialism, there were these 5 years, plans. And it's not that a bad idea to have something like that, to have because there is a time in your life where you can be really productive. Then it's the time when you have kids and you need to also readjust a little bit. And then again, there is another.
We will definitely talk about the next 5 years. What's your plan? Actually, it sounds like exciting times. Yeah, you were together. You have mutual interests. You were excited about what you learned, etc., etc. So this is something.
Yes.
We were lucky.
I would say what was very good or positive about it was that our boss was clinician, but he was very into research, but you know, he was like present for 1 hour per week when he was super excited, and he was always, our lab meeting started with like, show me what you have, you know, how can you amuse me? So we thought we are like these little pets on his side. But I think this freedom and the that he gave us, we also passed on our PhD students or master students. Of course, they needed a guidance, but the freedom of ideas was what I really liked, that there was never like a bad idea. When we wanted to try something, some new collaboration or new project, he never said, you know, no, because that's not the way I want to go. He just said, you know, try it and then let's see if that works. Maybe it develops in something really cool, or maybe it's just a blind way. You never know. But I think this openness, this freedom was the way that was really driving us to look up for more information, to do more experiments, because we knew we don't do it for someone's idea, but it's our idea and we want to explore it.
So you definitely knew how to take advantage of the freedom, yeah, to enjoy
Yes.
that. Yeah. You mentioned some quite an important point. You wanted to learn as much as possible. How can you learn as a group leader? What are the opportunities for personal development and skills development and learning and in this phase of your career?
Well, of course, meeting with senior colleagues that can give you good advices, how to approach the grant possibilities, then networking. For example, in Switzerland, each larger city had, for example, some cancer network. So, for example, in Zurich, that was a cancer network in Zurich, and they organize once in 2 years. There were probably 70 labs, or maybe that's too much, but they organized every 2 years a retreat, and there you could just talk to people and see how they approach different things. I was meeting up with colleagues, with chemists from Leiden, who also had helped us to develop some new compounds, but also their approach was important for me. So this, for me, not growing just in my own field, but getting advantage of the colleagues that work around, maybe in completely different topics. Next to our door were sitting people from immunobiology who deal with basic biology of immune system, something that was a little bit far away from our cancer studies, but still just seeing how they approach their topics, and maybe this could help us also to develop new projects at the end. This is what helped me to gain more confidence in that, I would say.
So this is about networking with peers and meeting people with different expertise and
yes, absolutely.
You ran quite a successful lab there. So what do you need to have to run a successful lab?
Very good PhD student and postdoc.
Of course.
Where to get them?
Have to marry.
Have to marry.
She was speaking them since.
What is it? People, infrastructure, money, ideas?
I mean, combination of all of that, of course. But I would say, from our perspective, was like several techniques in the lab in the beginning can be taught. It's not like a rocket science to do some basic techniques, and of course, then this curiosity for science, this needs to be something that the person has. And then you can see that, for example, during the interview, if the person is motivated maybe to learn new techniques, but not really to develop the project. And I would say the combination of just mutual trust and loyalty, that was something that always worked for us. that you try to build a team that supports each other, and then having people with this curiosity, basically, because we had people that were very skilled in the lab, but never progressed with the topic because they lacked this curiosity. So that is very important part. And then, of course,
can you recognize that someone's curious during your interview for a postdoc position?
I try to. I cannot say I'm always successful, but the only postdoc I have is curious. So
thank you.
I would say I'm 100% successful at that point. Yeah, I would say it's not always easy, because the person may seem to be motivated, but then you give them a topic and then you see it does not fit them. So maybe there is a way to talk after a few months on your PhD or postdoc. Do you like it? Where do you see it developing? And then sometimes it may happen that you may need to say goodbye to a person on your PhD or on your postdoc. Sometimes,
careful.
Sometimes the person says goodbye even before you think about it. Yeah, but on one of the Swiss networking part in Basel that I was taking part from, there is a very nice Czechoslovak team, CommatX. I met students who actually switched the PhD for 4 times, for example, until they found a good boss. So it's not that uncommon if the people is motivated and the PhD does not fit them, for example. But I would say it's always this mutual discussion what the boss expects. I would say that that's also important part of the interview, not only what the PhD, what the boss expects from the student, but also that the student may state his or her views in the beginning, if they know. Sometimes they, of course, don't know, and that crystallizes over the time, but it's never easy, but at some point we got this feeling that when we do the interviews, we usually try to have more people there, and then everyone can say, I like that people, I can imagine working with that people in the lab, or no, something was not just clicking, and then it's better that the person tries to find another place.
Yeah, that's a good way.
I think it needs to fit also to the lab, so that's not just, you can have a brilliant person, but very hard in personality, and then just screws the whole lab. So I think even maybe less brilliant person, because they can work together. And if it's now I'm just for my work, and you do everything bad, I do everything right, that may be difficult. So I think that's having peace in the lab is very important.
Yeah. But still, I distill from what you say, the curiosity is the way to success. Yeah.
Yes, you can see it on the students when they, I mean, you show them the topic, or you like tell them what they could do, and then you see if they start to already develop their like questions, like what about these, or did you try these, or how this works. So I mean, you can see it if the people are curious, or they are just more like, okay, so I should do the A, B, and C then, and then he gets there, and then he shows or she shows the data, and so okay, I did it. So what's next? And then with that, I mean, as a boss, the more the group grows, I think it's very difficult to having every single piece, and specifically nowadays when you have huge data sets, everything in mind, and then do the story. So you need to have someone which is interested, which looks into the data, and then really tries to distillate, as you say, from the data, the important stuff, and maybe also some small stuff that, okay, I didn't realize that, but I see this all the time, so what if you would look on this?
So if I want to get a position in your lab, yes, and what's better if I say, yeah, I know you are a successful leader and a smart person, I want to learn from you, or if I say, I really want to get to know how things work, and how is it possible that this makes this?
Yes, that's probably
so
better.
The B is better, yeah? This is someone who you search for, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Because a lot of people go for asking for position and say, I really want to learn the technique, and I really want to learn from you, and that's all that.
I mean, I always see the techniques, nowadays, specifically in molecular biology or biology itself. I mean, maybe it's counterproductive for us, but for everything you have some kind of kit, some company did optimize. So if you can read, you can do most of the stuff. So I think just doing the technique itself, because you anyway need to buy an expensive machine. If you are in physics, you have to build yourself the machine which you can measure something. But in molecular biology, you can't build sequencer. And to having a great sequencer and you have no idea what to do with it, or just you have it and it's like, what can we measure on it? Doesn't make really sense. So what you need to have this extra input, what is interesting, and it doesn't, most of the time it doesn't need to be even like expensive experiment, expensive equipment. You just need to have ideas. And I think that's what you are seeking. The more ideas, of course, it's not just like throwing ideas without any, just you can think of a million things, but some reasonable ideas that you can discuss, develop, and that is, I think, that is what makes the research science, not the equipment, because you always can find. If you have a great idea, you always, if not at the Masaryk University, somewhere in the world, you can show them, okay, I would like to do this. Can you help me? And there are always people, okay, this is a great idea, so why don't we
collaborate?
Collaborate. So this is, I think, which is really important.
Great.
Yeah, for some of our projects, we collaborated with 9 or 10 labs, and we just wrote them, and we explained the project, and we asked, would you be willing to collaborate with us on that, because we don't have this technique. And most of the time the people said, yes, that's a great idea, let's join forces, and we will measure that for you, or something like that. So that's something, when the people see it's interesting idea, interesting approach, then they also like to help with their expertise if they have them.
And what I especially like on this, she was talking about one project where we really had like 10 collaborators. And out of the 10, there were like 3 which were very enthusiastic. They were like, okay, why, I mean, we have these results. Why don't we try this and this and this? So and really charge us with energy. Because if you are in the end of the project, you just want to do some final experiments, and there are some people which are really enthusiastic about it, it really charges you and motivates you to go further and then do more stuff. So I think this is really, really important. Yeah,
so that's something that drives you, the spice that makes the science, the collaboration is great for having fun.
Yes.
Okay. We in previous talks we touched on the issue of what makes a great paper. So how do you evaluate that this paper is perfect, this paper is flawed, this paper is trash, and I don't have to read that? So what's the essence of good work?
In my opinion, when I start to write a paper, I need to have the figures done, and the figures need to make sense. So if I evaluate a paper, I also look through the figures, look how well this just flows, and how thorough are the experiments, if the hypothesis is basically proved or backed up by a couple of experiments. And this is, I think, essential, that nowadays a lot of papers go with, you know, we did single-cell RNA sequencing and there is just no validation. Of course, it's very important in the beginning of this methodology when someone publishes it that it's kind of like a proof we can do it. And then, of course, when it develops, it needs to have then proper validation. And after 5 years, after introducing novel methods, no one is that much interested about this method anymore, but how it can be applied in research further. So for me, a good paper is something, I mean, it does not always need to come with brilliant ideas, although you may see that in some papers it's really from the beginning to the end the idea is very brilliant. But from our own experience, a lot of things that you do at the end of your project you start to put as figure one because that's how it all develops. So yes, from me, just solid data, solid results, then I would say that this is a good paper when it makes sense in the results from the beginning to the end, and when when the results are solid. I don't know about you.
For me, it's maybe I would call it like validated statement. In the end of the paper, you need to have some statement. You know, not just that you read the whole paper and then now you just don't know what was it about. It's like, what's the result? What's the end point? What you can say about this or that? And the second thing is you really need to have it validated. If you say that this is like this, it's not just I saw it on qPCR. You need to validate it with other different methods, at least 2 or 3 that show to the same direction. And I think, I mean, like easy papers, easy to read, with 1-2 statements, they are very good.
Yeah, but supported from different.
Yes, of course, you can't just run
huh?
one technique because one technique
yeah.
just may have some disadvantages or.
Yeah.
Especially in the biology, sometimes the results may be biased by the way how you, I don't know, culture your cells. So also if you have some collaborators that actually came to the same conclusion as you did, that's a very strong point to believe that this work is really true, because then somebody else measures the same in completely different lab, in completely different setup. So.
That I have to say, then I really believe if someone else in the other lab came to the same conclusion, then I really believe to the the result.
It points to the reliability crisis in biomedicine, biomedical research. So validation. And do you think that the field is moving so that the validation from different labs should be part of the project to say that the results are sound and replicated, or it's too strict?
No, I mean you can go that direction, but then it's there are different points, like economical point. Who gives you grant to say I want to validate this and I want to run the same experiments, whether it gives the same? It should be validated maybe from, I mean, as you have it in discussion, that you discuss the data you have from the others. So if they kind of fit. And you see it from the different directions, also from other paper points to the same result, then that's the discussion about, right? So I think that's a good validation. And until we don't have so much extensive money that we can run, duplicate or triplicate the same experiments, even from the big labs, then it doesn't make really. I mean, no one will give you money to repeat the same thing. It's more like if you have the same or similar results from different labs, looking different from the different perspective, then you can have it as a validation. And do you have an internal rule in your group that how many times you replicate and validate before you say this is something that is really there?
Yeah, of course. Like we perform the experiments at least 3 times to see. It depends on the data. Like sometimes if it's large sequencing, you can't really repeat it again, or large CRISPR screens, you can't do it 3 times because your whole grant money would be spent just on this. So I would say that there are these big exploratory studies that at least part of it you try to validate with independent method to prove, okay, my findings are correct. So I would say this is how we try to do also. If we run first big screens, then we try to validate on smaller set of genes, if that is true, or we try to come with different approach, let's say chemical inhibition of this part of pathway or gene to see it. Is it really true? So, at least
different approaches, different perspective to test if there's
exactly.
the
Maybe checking the same but with different technique, different method. That is then cheaper, but then give you the confidence that your findings are on a good track.
Perfect.
But I have to say, you know whether you pushed the data to the that it's borderline, but it's significant 0.049 or something like that. You know whether the data, because you know the best the data. No one in the world will go through the data you have and check whether, there are maybe some people which maybe are obsessive about it, but no one will go through, and you need to guarantee. I mean, you have to have some ethics, you should, and once you go over this part where you just know, this is not true, but anyway we'll publish, at some point if you are going with the research further, it will catch you. You start to realize, if you just want to publish one paper in your life, you just publish this, and then you never ever will go to the research, then it's okay, you can just publish something. But at some point, if you are on the same topic, and once you kind of like lie or you misinterpret or push a little bit, you start to realize that it doesn't fit in 3 or 5 years, and it will catch you. So I think this is a good validation also for you, for the others, if the people are working on the same, and they kind of validate also backwards the data, because you kind of have to progress and you have to build up on your data. If you can't build on your data, then it just falls apart.
This is an important point, a critical point, I would say. So integrity means that you have your, let's say, long-term career on your mind, and having the conscience. And
I think this is an internal setup. I know that people tend to have a lot of controls and different consortia which evaluates this or that, but at some point it comes to the person, If I want to lie, I will be able to lie, and I will be, but I mean, you have to have some integrity. You have to believe to the people, which you can see it, maybe it's far away, but you can see in the politics that everyone wants to control everything. You can't. It's impossible. So I think you need to have certain trust to the people, that also when Lenka, she had to learn to trust the people. If someone comes with the data, she's not going through the data and reevaluates. Did you do right everything what you did? So I think you need to build on trust. And sometimes the people misuse, and then you can't do anything about it.
Great. I would like to move a bit in your story. You seem to be quite settled in Switzerland. So what came to your mind that you wanted to get back to Brno, to Masaryk? Was it a kind of opportunity or homesickness, or what was it?
So at some point we, as I said, we never really thought to stay 9 years. And then when our kids were born there, we were rethinking if we really would like to stay in Switzerland until we retire, probably, because when they would start to go to school there, we wouldn't really like to take them back in 5-10 years, and then if you come back at your 50s, it's probably difficult to get a position. So
Vice Dean or something like that.
Well, there could be options, but so we were thinking about it. more like a milestone, like do we want to develop our careers now from now on in Switzerland, or do we want to come back to Czech, where both of us have the families, Czech or in Slovakia, and we decided that we would like to come back to be closer to our families. The reason was, I mean, simple. Although Switzerland is not as far as when you need to fly to US, it's still 1,000 kilometers from us. Especially during COVID, it was clear that Switzerland, as not even being part of European Union, they have their own rules. When they shut down the borders, then you can't do much about it. You can't leave the country, or you can, but you cannot return in better way. And we were never Swiss, right? Also, Switzerland does not give the passport to kids that are born there. We were always foreigners there. And we thought that now it's probably a good time to try to develop or to build a career here in Czech, and to allow the kids to learn proper Czech language as well, and to allow them to build the relationship, stronger relationship with their grandparents, with their families here. So that was, I think, the main reason.
So you moved here. That was the opening position for, through the National Institute for Cancer Research, I suppose, And although you said that the essence of your group are curious people, and you are here and you are curious people, so there's no big deal about the translocation, or how to say that, moving here. Can you compare the conditions in Switzerland and here? Is here something that holds you back, or prevent your ideas to sparkle and be executed? Could you compare the conditions here?
I mean, maybe I'm not the super representative one, because, I mean, we worked in the hospital there, not in academia, whereas now we moved to academia. So I would say Swiss government has its own rules for many things, which sometimes may be more difficult than here in Czechia, sometimes maybe less. So there is, I think, more of the, I would say in Switzerland there is more independence with the research. It's sometimes it's harder to get the grant, but when you get it, you have rather freedom where to move it. They trust in you when they give you the money that you can lead the project, although it may end up maybe not the way you expected 5 years ago or 3 years ago, but they still trust you, and then you feel like this little bit more of the independence, of the freedom. But other than that, I would say the conditions are very similar. What I liked there is that Switzerland is, of course, very competitive. There are very good institutes, but sometimes people are like not really willing to collaborate, because they would say, yeah, we do it as a service for you, but not as like a collaboration, because we have so many other international interesting collaborations. And I mean, this is just one example, for example, but I would say here at the academic field or in academia, it's nicer that you have this opportunity to meet a lot of people and find out or find a lot of experts who can maybe sit just the next door to you.
Yeah. So for collaboration, for meeting people, it's easier here, I would say.
Yes, I mean, we were working in eastern Switzerland, so it's something when you ask Swiss people, Switzerland for them finishes at the border of Zurich, and then what is eastern from Zurich is just a village and cows, right? So That's something what you also need to think about when we introduced ourselves from St. Gallen. People usually knew, oh, you have the cows there, and that was it, right? So it also comes with a little in different flavors from where you work in Switzerland and
Prague, Moravia, Brno, Bratislava.
Yes.
Okay. I think that we have time to go through the questions that were sent to us. Yes. So if you agree, there's a question about data management and how critical is data management in your research. So what can you comment on data management?
I think
it's your job.
Yeah, kind of. I try. Although I have to say I'm very unorganized, but I can at least learn from Lenka. No, I mean, this is kind of like a question. Of course, it's very important when you don't have, and especially nowadays where you need to store all of your data. So this is very critical, especially if you want to just return few years back and you want to check about the data. So it's very important. And I don't know about the level of PIs, because that might be different, but at the lab level, it's very important, especially when we have new students. I always tell them, you might just put 1, 2, 3, 4 till 7 and describe your appender files, but in half of the year you will have like 5,000 5s and 5,000 3s, and you will have no idea. So better to have it more described. Having some structure, maybe it's good that if new people come to the lab, it's good that you have already structure and you just tell them, look, you should do it like this. And then maybe they can do it slightly differently, or you can update, but it's good that the lab, or I think that's the PI should set up some rules for the data management and say, look, we do it in this way. You always need to have it here and here described, and if you do it somehow else, do it for yourself, but we need to have it like this, because we need to, at one point when you leave, we need to get back to the data, and we need to know how. So if you have your own, legend, it's fine, have your own legend, but either put it somewhere that we can be able, and it's depending. What really worked for us, what we learned, that we had this weekly meetings with our boss, and we always put everything, even like small stuff, when Western was not working, something, you just put it into the presentation with the date, and then you had all the data, and you always somehow describe that this is this and this project, and then you at least were able to locate, okay, it was this month or somewhere, and we had this data, and then you can go through the date, and then you could check backwards. So in science, I think it's very difficult to have organized data, because you will have so many different or so many different data sets. You have single cell, you have whole exome sequencing, you have confocal data, you have Western blot data, and you can't just make one rule for all of them. So I think something very easy, like data should be like somehow presented, so some presentation and date. It's the least you have to be able to relocate. And then it's a little bit of like a detective work, so it's always 5 years.
I would say it's critical, at least for me, when I'm then writing the story out of it. Usually, at least in the grants that we had in Switzerland, it's not required that the grant needs to finish with a published paper. So it happens many times that you publish it 2-3 years afterwards, because if it's a big project, you need to gather a lot of the data, and then this data management is really critical to be able to put all of the raw data that the journal requires. Then, so that is, I think, essential to have good organization in that.
Yeah, definitely. And you give the structure to the whole group. There's a question about the number of one studies. So, given the personalized nature of cancer immunotherapy, how relevant are N of one studies in your research? And can you share insights on how these studies contribute to the development of tailored treatment approaches? Do you have any comments on this?
It's difficult to say because we are not treating those patients. So I think when we were working at the clinics, the interesting part about it was that sometimes the clinical team or our boss had some observation, and they told us, you know, this patient experienced a fever and we have no idea why. Or there is a patient with melanoma that after the checkpoint inhibitor therapy got completely gray hair in few days, and we should understand that side effect. But for that is very critical the collaboration of the clinics, right? So that, let's say, more samplings from one patient to understand why it happens. And that was not something we were really following because our work was more translational, but sometimes even basic research. And we did only few of these so-called like case reports when there were more samplings of the patient. So it's, for me, it's very hard to answer it globally from the clinical perspective because I was not at the clinic seeing the patients. So.
Yeah, but from the clinical perspective, you usually see one presentation of something. So this is really, I would say, exciting that you can analyze in a single case what might be the...
Absolutely, yes. And there were interesting cases when, for example, the patient had some mutation in particular gene that was connected, for example, with skin cancer. And then, of course, was very interesting to follow this patient or this family. But if we, at least from what I think, if the clinics observed some side effects of some therapy, they try to see if this may be more common in in more patients, for example, having better response to checkpoint inhibitors, because that would mean that the immune system is unleashed, and then they would search for common antigens that are between the tumor and, for example, skin or lungs or so. So I would say it was interesting in particular, let's say, inherited suspectabilities towards cancer, but in observation for side effects, I would say that they tried at the clinics to see if more patients developed that.
Makes sense. Another question is, what is most challenging thing about heading the lab?
Yes, it's difficult.
Who's heading the lab?
Managing the postdoc.
Of course. I would say it comes in ups and downs. So sometimes when you can't really find, let's say, a good student, that may be challenging because you may feel that you can't finish your project in time because you have no people for that. For me, in the beginning was, maybe Andrej mentioned it a little bit, for my postdoc I was doing everything with my own hand, and then I had to give this trust to people. That was not easy for me, not to be a micromanager at the beginning and not trying to see that if the experiment failed, that it had to be the hands of the student, not something else, right? But I would say nowadays it's more like getting the funding, having more stability in the lab. That's something what is maybe not easy for me to know, that the grants are only for limited time, and then if you secure your team for next year so that you can develop larger projects, or you need to be really afraid every year. So.
This is really difficult stuff. Another tough question, what was the hardest decision you had to do? And this applies for two of you.
You can start.
We already read the question. We were thinking about this, and actually, I have to say we never had to make like tough decisions or something like that. It was always somehow like precipitated, you know. At the time when we were leaving for Switzerland, we were just, okay, now it's the time when we are in Switzerland, we can enjoy the lab, the new stuff. I was particularly very excited about new things that I can learn, I can do. Also about that one can go to the mountains and, you know, it is very nice view. I mean, really, really nice views. And at some point it was like, okay, there is something missing. Apparently it was the kids. And also after these 9 years, it started to be a little bit like, you know, all the same in the lab, because you try to develop new ideas, but you are still in the same environment. So it was also like, I think this was these 5 years where you try to move or change something in your life that you always can enjoy it. That it's not like, okay, 9 to 5 in the work, and then and then it's a weekend, and then you go to somewhere, and you know that you can. It's always something which you have new, which you can explore, where you can be a little bit more excited. So I think, I personally, for me, we never had to do like tough decisions like this or that. It was always like, okay, we maybe just move on, or maybe we just do this because we agreed on that, and we felt it like this. And I think this is really good, because then if you do sacrifices, then you are like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that, or. And I think that you never should look back and then, I mean, it's already done, so you just continue with what was your decision.
Yeah, that's smart. Follow your instincts and take advantage of the situation that what brings to your life. Okay. What is your recommendation for someone who wants to get a postdoc position in Switzerland? Invite the
boss,
the boss.
And bring him a good bottle of wine. That also helps.
And Villa Tugendhat works here.
Yes. I would say I was lucky that I met my boss here, but I think it was also here in some of the previous research breakfasts that it's much easier to find a good postdoc when you are in the country. So sometimes we also had it like that we had a lot of interns, even from Masaryk University or from other universities in Czechia. And then we also suggested them, if you are interested, you are here for 3 months in Switzerland, so try to look for the positions, because it's easier when you are there. But of course, it's not always possible. Switzerland is small. It's just 7 million people, and what I need to say is that Swiss people, they have very good living standard, so they are not very fond of doing PhDs or postdocs. Switzerland rather invites the people from outside, because for their education the other countries had to pay, so it's cheaper for them, and they get a lot from the knowledge of the people if they studied with a good background. So it's not that actually that people would not take people from outside for a postdoc. It's good to stay persistent, write to people, call them if needed. And I would say also the networking nowadays, it's very important. Like, there is a lot of people that you can meet online. There are some Czech and Slovak symposia organized for people to network, to meet the people from academia. And when you are there, you realize it happened to us. For example, we were sitting in the office, and then at the corridor we heard someone making a phone call in Czech, and we never expected this person to have Czech background. And then you learn that there is a lot of people who emigrated when they were little. So you can find a lot of friends and you don't know about it. But if you start to spread the message, start to write to some people, I would say easier. And Switzerland, as it may seem that it's Mecca of science, but it's really open for new people to come, because they lack a lot of these smart people, smart ideas that come from abroad.
So they expect people to come.
Yes, in certain way, yes.
As Lenka mentioned, for Swiss, doesn't make sense to go for PhD. Because the PhD is slightly organized differently. You have like proposed salary for a PhD. You don't get any stipendia. The boss has to find the money, but he is obliged to pay you that and that amount. But if you are just a master's student and get employed in some company, you earn more. So for Swiss, it doesn't make sense. Just for the one which are really motivated. And I have to say, most of the Swiss PhD students, if they really start the PhD, they are good, but there are not a lot of them. Usually it's abroad, like from the whole Europe, you know. So I think you may have chance, and as maybe Lenka mentioned, there is this Czech-Slovak organization, Comet X. And if you want to get to PhD or postdoc in Switzerland, it's best to contact them. And there are a lot of people which are already in, and they maybe can help you to advance or to find the people or to spread the message that you are looking for.
So start searching and connect with people.
Yes.
You mentioned internship. How long does it make sense to be on an internship from the point of view of a lab management or a group leader? Does it make sense that someone comes in for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or is it better if it's longer?
I would say the longer the better. So we usually accepted interns for 3 months, not really shorter, because the first month you learn from the people around, and then the next 2 months you are actually able to do something with your own hands and to explore your ideas also. So I would say if for example we had chemists that visited us to see how we employ their chemicals, then it would make sense to be there for a week, right? Because they will not become biologists from that internship. But if the people are really in the biology field and go for the internship, I would say for them to gain the self-confidence, it's important to stay longer, because you are not treated as only someone who is shadowing somebody, but you are treated as really a member of the lab. So
yeah, that's.
And I think that's also very important for the lab, which accepts you for the internship, because as Lenka mentioned, the first 1 month or first 2 weeks, even you are brilliant, you just stay in the way, you know, you're just wasting others people's time. So for them it's, you know, because they have to teach you, they have to just show, you know, where you just put or when you just empty the bags, or very stupid things. And if you don't teach them, then they are, you know, from other groups, they can tell about, they just do mess, but it was the student which didn't know. So the first few weeks you just have to teach them, and for you as a lab to have some advantage also, because you also want to have some advantage from the people, it's good to have these 3 months, because then you can teach them and they can produce something, or they can optimize some method, or they can produce some data, or they can be the interconnection with the other labs. So
that makes sense. Thank you. Did the work-life balance change after returning to the Czech Republic?
I would say no, because we still came back with our kids, so that's how we need to handle it. The kindergarten is open in certain hours. We have, I would say, more family opportunities here, which we did not have in Switzerland. So I think that's the only thing that changed. But I would say if we need to stay longer at work, we stay longer here, no matter if we are in Brno or in Switzerland. And if we need to take a weekend off, we just need to take it, and that's how it is. So we try to balance it still the same way, although it's easier here because the grandparents are closer, so we tend to have more work than life, but it's, I would say we keep it still balanced.
Okay. And our question is about, is the knowledge acquired equivalent to a USA institution? Really don't know what kind of knowledge, but...
I mean, I would say there are different perspectives on that. So we were thinking about it, like what experience you gain in US, and it's probably broader because you are exposed to larger labs with great infrastructure and great connection across the US, and you can be part of a great paper that in our lab, when we were 7 people, if you want to be a part of great paper, you either need to wait for a long time because it's difficult to produce something in 7 people than if you have 5 talented postdocs, right? But in going to Switzerland gives you a little bit different perspective on collaboration in Europe. I think that's sometimes difficult for people who return from US, that US is quite closed, and it's difficult to bring all your collaborations also for the grant proposals. It's not that easy maybe to collaborate with US, whereas when you are in Europe, you gain this network a little bit, the European one, and then you get also a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience from that. I don't know, what's your perspective on a PhD study here?
Yeah, I mean, regarding the PhD, I would say in general, maybe in the Western countries, they put more effort how to present, show the data. It's less about the memorizing knowledge, and you see that, and I don't know whether this is really like particular advantage, because at some point you have to know the things, you have to know them by heart, you need to memorize some things, you just can't just find everything, and in the Western countries they know how to present themselves. You have really, I mean, you see the students. When they are presenting, they really know how to present, how to have the right position, how to design the slides, and everything is good. But then when they start to work, you see that it's okay, that was the presentation, but there are some things which are missing. And maybe what we had experienced, and when we had the people from Masaryk University, that they knew. I mean, because they knew that by heart. Even sometimes our PhD student from the from the Zurich University asked Lenka, like, "How do you know?" And she was like, I learned it at the school." So, that is sometimes context, missing. I think. Yeah. So I think it has to be some balance. I think everyone could learn from the other. So I think that the students from Czech can learn more the self-presentation, not being afraid to ask questions. That is, I mean, questions, that's what you learn. You have the feeling when you're at these big conferences that everyone is smart and you are just the only dumb person which doesn't understand. And then in the front row, all the professors sometimes really ask dumb questions, but they are not afraid because they don't have to prove anyone anything. And I think that also the students have to learn that I just ask, if it's dumb, then you just don't answer, or you just say it's dumb or something. Just don't care about what other things.
Yeah, there is no stupid questions.
There's no stupid question.
I mean, they are stupid questions. Being honest, they are stupid. But you can always ask them. You don't have to be afraid. It's. So I think that this is kind of like the two worlds which can learn from each other, and maybe if they interact or like somehow be advantage.
Perfect. Last question is about Green Deal and environmental stuff. So during the course of your research in Switzerland, were the impacts of human-induced burning of fossil fuels significant? Or did your studies assess the carcinogenic role of microplastics and PFAS in the air and water?
Unfortunately, as much as it would be interesting, we don't know. We just can say that in Switzerland there is general trend for preserving the nature, right, and trying to reduce as much as possible. So the rich people, if they can, they do this, how do you call it?
Maybe a funny story from our boss. He has 4 kids, and you know, he's flying a lot for conferences. And his kids, they are very clever, but they are also this new generation, environmental friendly. And he was forbidden to fly anywhere else unless he makes his house completely independent. So he did this huge, they dig deep into the ground that he has this ground heating and all this. And after that, he was allowed to fly, that his CO2 is like neutral. But it's always, in Switzerland, it's much easier because the wealth of the people is much higher. So then you start to take care. If you have already like one Lamborghini, then you just buy the Tesla. Why not? But it's a different
is it a
perspective.
topic there, sustainability or in research?
It is.
Yes, they try there. You can always see the companies, they say these are reusables or these are recycled or something. They always try to convince you that why you should buy the more expensive one than the cheaper ones.
Okay. Well, so I think it is all, it's done.
Okay.
I would say it was a nice and smooth pear therapy.
For now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and experiences. It was a great pleasure talking to you, and I hope that you really enjoyed that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation and discussion.
Perfect. Thank you.
Before you start to network and drink another coffee, there is something my colleague Terka wants to tell you about data management. So,
thank you. Good morning. I'll say it very quickly. My name is Tereza Miškechová, and I am a contact person for Open Science here at Faculty of Medicine. And because most of you are or soon will be dealing with the involvement of open science principles and research data management and data management planning in your projects, we prepared a new open science webpage. Before you start your project, you need to think about involving open science principles, and as it was mentioned, today is extremely important research data management. So you can visit faculty website, and in the section Research and Development, there is a signpost where you can find information about open science publishing, other optional open science principles, and of course research data management and data management planning. There is an overview about conditions for selected providers, and we also created a checklist for preparing your data management plan. You can find printed version here, and if you have any questions and if you need any help in this area, please feel free to contact me. Thank you very much and have a nice day.